Coming up next,
Ed Kalegi and Karen Richmond. This is Chatterbinge.
It's been said that she is the astronaut who smashed through the glass ceiling and kept on going. She is the first woman to pilot and command the Space Shuttle. A new feature-length documentary details her remarkable career. It is titled Spacewoman. It is great to say hello to Colonel Eileen Collins. Colonel Collins, welcome to Chatterbinge.
Well, thanks. Thanks for having me on your show. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I appreciate your time very much for this. Colonel, I have interviewed over 1,300 people over 14 years, and I have never been able to ask anyone this question until now. What is it like? What is the feeling to leave this planet and then return?
Well, I'm going to answer that by saying I think space tourism will be extremely successful someday. And I'm not selling seats. I have no financial interest in it, but it is such a wonderful human experience. And now the launch is a little bit kind of like a roller coaster ride. It's, full body experience with all the five senses. But I think the real magical part about it is being in orbit. After about 8 minutes of launch, under 3 Gs, that's like 3 times your weight of the acceleration that you feel as you launch. At about 8.5 minutes, regardless of the launch vehicle that you're on, the engine shut down and everything instantly goes to zero gravity and everything starts floating. Your collar floats up around your neck, your papers start flying around, there's dust in the air. It takes a little bit getting used to, a couple of days as your body adjusts to being in zero gravity, but it's almost like you're Peter Pan you remember the Peter Pan character?
Sure.
The old flying over Neverland. Well, no, you're in space and you're flying over the Earth. And you're looking down, and by the way, the Earth is round, 100%. Don't tell me the Earth is flat. I've seen it with my own eyes. So at the space station, you go around the Earth once every 90 minutes, and you get a sunset and sunrise every 45 minutes. The sun's coming up or going down. And, I think it's just a real magical experience. Two things, floating in space, and the second one is looking back at our beautiful blue and white planet Earth that is round.
And I love how you describe that, because I can hear the excitement in your voice still for that experience. And I was concentrating on the space flight, but then you brought up there the ability to look back and look at all of us and look at this and our world. That has to be such a defining moment in anyone's life. And I just find that description charming in so many different ways. I think back to your story, and I think back to when you were young. Colonel Collins, was there one particular space mission that you watched on TV or maybe read about when you were young that captivated you and made you say, I want to do that one day?
Yeah, there actually was a moment in time. I was in 4th grade, and it was sometime in the late 1960s. I was reading a junior scholastic magazine that had an article on the Gemini astronauts. Now, you might remember Gemini was the precursor to the Apollo moon landing, and the Gemini astronauts, they flew in Earth orbit and they tested all the equipment. It was eventually going to go to the moon. Well, anyway, I'm reading about these men, and I was just intrigued by, they were pilots, they were test pilots, they were in the military. I just thought they were the coolest guys ever to exist. There were no women astronauts back then, but right. I was like 9 years old. I go, I'm going to be a lady astronaut. That's what I'm going to do. And it wasn't until I was like in high school and I went, there's no women astronauts. Wonder why that is. I didn't really know. But then in 1978, NASA hired their first women mission specialists into the Space Shuttle program. And that was when it became a reality for me. And I had already become an Air Force pilot at the time. And I studied the Space Shuttle program, and I saw they had mission specialists, which did the spacewalks, and they flew the robot arm, very important job. But to be a commander, you had to be a pilot first. Well, I was a pilot in the military, so I applied to the pilot position on the Space Shuttle, and I got hired as the first woman to do that. And that was really because of timing. I don't really think I'm not any better than the other women pilots. For me, it was just the timing. And I would think, very fortunate to have the opportunity to go on and be commander, which I absolutely loved. Being a shuttle commander, it was probably the best job in the world.
As everyone knows, the shuttle suffered through 2 horrific tragedies, Challenger in 1986 and then Columbia in 2003. And then you're scheduled to be in charge of the shuttle's following flight. Did you ever think of saying no?
No. that I never thought of saying no. To answer your question, there was no way I was going to quit that mission. When the accident happened in 2003, I was commander of the next flight going up. And, of course, we didn't fly that mission. The mission itself was canceled, and we went into a period of accident investigation and then a period of return to flight. NASA asked me to stay on and be the commander of the next flight going up. We kept, of the 7 crew members, we kept 4 of us, and we brought on 3 new crew members. And so our flight was changed. We became what was called the return to flight mission. There was no way I was going to quit that mission. I was going to fly. I felt very well prepared. I worked with the Space Shuttle program to fix the problems that caused the accident. And by the way, there were other things going on with the shuttle that could have also caused an accident. And I had asked the shuttle program, could you please fix these things now that we have time, we have the money, let's fix, there were things like our rudder speed brake had problems, we had problems with our landing gear, and these things needed to be fixed before we could fly again. And they were. And it took 2.5 years. We eventually flew the mission. I would say the mission was very, very successful. But when you watch the film Spacewoman, you'll see the drama of that mission that we flew. It was not perfect. We did have an incident that happened that was similar to what caused the previous accident. And so the film team interviewed my flight directors. They interviewed some of my crew members. They interviewed family members. The families get pretty stressed out, and they worry about their loved one going up into space. All of that comes out in the film with the return to flight mission. It's pretty much at the end of Spacewoman, but I think, for me at the time, it was my job. But now that I look back at it with Spacewoman, which is totally accurate, it's a documentary with very accurate of what happened. That was a very dramatic time of my life and of the life of our space program. And I'm very glad that that's now been recorded in history. And by the way, this documentary, Spacewoman, just doesn't record what happened, but it's actually fun to watch. It's very, I want to say, dramatic and emotional. The way the music, which is original music, by the way, is actually edited into the film, into the story, to help keep people engaged. And it is definitely a very engaging film. I've already seen it like 20 times myself.
I love that. I love that. You know what? You have nothing to do on Saturday? Let's go see the movie for the 23rd time. I love that. I think that's awesome. And it's interesting, Colonel, because I mentioned in the beginning, I could never really ask anyone before, what is it like to leave this planet? It's very seldom that I get to ask someone, what is it like to watch a movie about you?
Oh boy. So the first time I watched it was a kind of almost like a draft version, and I watched it more for accuracy. Yeah. And is everything portrayed right? There were some things in there that people said that were not correct, and we needed to edit that stuff. We wanted to make sure everything was correct. So the first time I saw it, I was like, okay. But then the second time I saw it, we were in a theater, and I watched it. It was at a film festival, and I was blown away. It is I want to say, mentally and emotionally, I got involved in the movie as I watched it, and I attribute that to the way the music is edited into the film. It's after you see the same film many times, you start picking out things that you didn't see the first couple of times.
Sure, yeah.
So yeah. And the reason I've seen it so many times is we were showing it at film festivals, and I would go and do a Q&A afterwards. In fact, the theatrical release that is coming up starting this weekend, I'm going to some of the cities and doing Q&A after the showing. And all of that is on, if people want to look it up, it's on the spacewoman.film website, what cities the documentary is going to and which ones I'm going to be at personally.
That's terrific. Colonel, young women will see this film, and their dreams will be inspired by learning about you. What do you want them to take with them most after seeing Spacewoman?
I think that's the reason I eventually said yes to this film. It's hard to see your life, your personal life and your personal problems going up on the screen.
Sure.
But the reason I eventually said yes is there are young people, I'm going to say, boys and girls, men and women, that will watch Spacewoman and be tremendously inspired by it. Some will decide they want to be astronauts. Some will decide that maybe they want to be engineers or designers or work in the space. Maybe they want to be flight directors and work in the space program in some capacity. So encourage them to take math and science in school. So that is the reason I eventually said yes to doing this film. I mean, I had to be part of saying yes. They couldn't have made it without me. And so I'm hopeful that this film will go on years and years, and even decades from now, and continue to inspire people to shoot for the stars. Learn from your mistakes, and you can recover and keep pressing on the next day. And I think all that comes out in the film, and it's a good message.
It is, and it's a very definitive film in many different ways. Once again, you can learn much more about the film by going to spacewoman.film. You can find where it's being screened. You can actually get your tickets there as well. Colonel Eileen Collins, this has been a treat and an honor for me. Thank you so much for joining us here on Chatterbinge.
Thanks for the chat.
I'm Ed Kalegi.
Great conversations happen here.
Chatterbinge.
Chatterbinge.
And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can always catch our best guest conversations and segments right here on the YouTube home of Chatterbinge.